Merry Christmas, retro gaming fans! This is random access memories from yesterday's arcade. It's the mid to late 1980s. Just picture the scene. You walk into an arcade hall and you see Outrun for the first time ever. The place is bustling with noise. Some people are even smoking. You scrape the inside of your pockets looking for a bit of cash, and there it is, a 50p piece. The rest is up to you. The sheer speed and attention to detail is absolutely amazing. And unbeknown to you, that soundtrack just might stick around forever. If, like me, that 50p didn't last long. But Outrun left such an impression, I had to have one more go, and I'm still playing it today. Simply the stuff of dreams. I still remember the first time I saw Bionic Commando in the arcade. It was at a seaside caravan park in Prestatyn, Wales. I remember begging my mum for money to play it, but between the queues and the constant lack of funds, it wouldn't be until some years later that I finally got to play it. Swinging from treetops like Tarzan, replacing rope for a bionic arm, armed to the teeth like Rambo. As soon as I was old enough, I'd religiously head towards the arcade and nearly always ended up playing Bionic Commando. I simply played in the arcade whenever I could. It was all we had back then. There was no YouTube, no Xbox or PlayStation consoles.
Of course we had computers, but massively underpowered compared to today's consoles.
Apparently this is the sequel to Commando, and Super Joe is the $6 million man. Now this is one my cousin and I played in the local social club. We must have put absolute hours into this. The skinheads have captured Madonna, your girlfriend, and it's time for you to get out there on the streets and kick some butt. As with the 1984 classic Kung Fu Master, this skinhead gang has messed with the wrong guy. It really is a great arcade game. It's quick, has multiple levels, large sprites, and impressive graphics. It looks absolutely fantastic. There's a ZX Spectrum conversion that's really good, but it's the PC Engine version that really pulls out all the stops, looking identical to the arcade original. It really is a shame, a crying shame, that US Gold got their hands all over the 8-bit and 16-bits. We all know Ocean Software would have done an absolute stellar job of converting this one. Super Sprint was one of the first ever arcade games I've ever played. This was the top-down racer, which created a whole new sub-genre.
This is one of those races that really makes your palms sweat.
You simply go into a corner, spin the wheel, and let go as you went round, catching it again at the perfect time as you headed out of the corner. Super Sprint arrived with 8 tracks of varying difficulty. The game came with all kinds of hazards. Add head-on collisions to that, rampaging tornadoes, big air ramps, oil slicks, animated gates that open and shut, and impressive explosions. The driving algorithm also built into the game recognised bank steep corners, giving a 3D appearance and the driver more traction. It doesn't end there either. On acquiring a few wrenches, you get to upgrade your car between each intermission. This is 80s arcade at its best.
The boss will be with you. Always. Red 5 standing by.
Oh my god. This is officially the first arcade game I ever experienced. There it was, the sit-down version, literally staring at me as we walked into the arcade. Back then, arcades were bingo halls, gambling dens, and places to eat. Star Wars literally held me by the shorts and curlies and reeled me in. It was at this point, at this stage, that I fell in love with video games, and have continued that trend ever since. My god, this is the movie. You play Luke Skywalker, and it's our time to blow up the Death Star. The experience, the impact of playing this game as a young boy has definitely stayed with me over the years. And although it's been bettered by today's consoles, this not only went on to inspire a generation, but gave birth to a bunch of 80s very talented bedroom programmers. The force is strong with this one. Now this side-scrolling pixel pusher from Capcom really left its mark. It was leagues ahead of anything else in the arcade at the time. Every time you played it, it was such a memorable occasion. Players got to select their fighter from 3 characters: martial artist Cody and Guy, or former pro wrestler turned mayor Mike Hager. Then it's off to rescue Jessica, Mike Hager's daughter, from the villainous Mad Gear gang. Capcom seriously ruled the streets with this hard-hitting, scrolling fighter. This street brawler is a loud, colourful fight to the finish that typifies the late 80s gaming environment that over 40s like you and I were born into. Sadly, US Gold struck again on the 8-bit and 16-bit home conversions, with the programmers missing out on some of the fundamental designs of the arcade original. It wasn't until the Sega Mega CD version that we finally experienced Final Fight in the home as intended. Like the Costa del Sol, I always like a return to the fantasy zone. Space Harrier was like being strapped into a high-speed roller coaster with a plasma gun tucked firmly under your arm. Yu Suzuki is largely responsible for some of Sega's greatest games. This fast, easy-to-hit shooter really took things to the next level. The Space Harrier is permanently flying into the screen. You must avoid collisions and shoot everything and anything in your path, especially the projectiles they're firing back at you. It's your job to save the fantasy zone, home of the dragons from evil, robotic-like creatures. 3 types of cabinet were made for Space Harrier: an upright, a sit-down, and then a full-motion cockpit. Space Harrier is an incredibly vibrant game, with fast-paced action and wonderful use of colour. Go save those dragons. Ah, Shinobi. I can still remember the immortal words now. Welcome to bonus stage. This is one of the best, if not my favourite ninja game of all time. And killing that guy took bags of practice.
Mission 1 finished. Welcome to bonus stage.
This bit was absolutely incredible when I first saw it. Even now it's still just so much fun to play. This really is one of the toughest games I've ever had to play. I'm still yet to complete the game some 30 years on. It's a tough challenge, but one I'm not ready to yet give up on. Well done, Sega. Fantastic level design, fantastic graphics, and a wonderful use of colour. And that's why we still love you as a developer, despite all the heartache you've put us through. And I'd just like to say thanks to the sales curve and the conversion to the Amstrad CPC from Richard Applin. It was brilliant. The thing I remember most about this game is the wonderful colour used in the detailed backgrounds. I mean, just look at that sun. There's absolutely no denying that Rygar features several beautifully detailed backgrounds. That's not saying it's the only thing. For me, the gameplay had everything I love about this style of game. The pace is good, the controls are tight, and the weapons devastating. In fact, how many games outside of the Mario universe see you bouncing along like a plumber? There's no doubt there's plenty of fun to be had with Rygar, especially considering its fast pace. The sound effects work nicely, and the music really adds to the atmosphere of the game. Rygar came packed with 27 levels of goodness. Be warned though, after level 20, the continue system was removed, which means meeting the bad guy at the end is extremely difficult. True story, the first time I ever played R-Type was actually on the ZX Spectrum, the 48K. At the time of playing it, I thought there was no other game on the ZX Spectrum, or in the arcades, or any other computer that could better it. Bob Pape, the programmer behind the ZX Spectrum version, is an absolute genius. Then I played the arcade version some months later. Oh my god. The speed of the thing, the colours, the detail of the graphics,
The sound effects, the music, unbelievable for the time. It felt like the ultimate upgrade. But out of sheer loyalty, I still played the ZX Speccy version and dabbled with the Amstrad CPC as well. A big thanks to Keith Goodyear for that. But then came the Amiga version. To me, it felt arcade perfect. These home conversions were so accurate that by the time I did play the arcade version, within my first few credits, I was already on level 3. The memories I've got of Robocop the movie and the video game is just something else. The home ports, the Speccy, the 64 and the Amstrad CPC were all superlative. Ocean massively captured the detail of the film and the arcade. It's arguably one of the greatest arcade lineups of all time, and also one of the greatest arcade conversions to 8-bit home computers. And I think it's safe to say, probably the biggest home computer game of the 1980s. It was the game that proved movie conversions could port to 8-bit and arcade. And let's be deadly serious, put Ocean Software on the map. Nice shooting, Ocean, and thank you for your cooperation. These really were the best of times. For me at the time, this was a revolutionary beat 'em up from IRM Software. This was proper kung fu fighting, and it was fast as lightning. For less than 50 pence, you got to play as Bruce Lee. No longer did you just have to watch him in a movie, you could play him. And this, without question, is a scrolling fighter that established the genre. This guy is the ultimate underdog. It's one man versus an army, whilst just using his hands and feet. For reasons unknown to our main protagonist, Mr. X, the local crime lord, has stolen your girlfriend. So you don your white suit and head to the Devil's Temple, where 5 sons of the devil will entertain you. I also played this on the Commodore 64 and the Amstrad CPC, and they were excellent arcade conversions. But let's not mention the ZX Spectrum. You might say I've saved the best till last, but for me, I did so in no particular order. Taito wanted to outrun, and for some, they achieved just that. For me personally, Taito's arcade racer shunted the competition from the road. This high-speed pursuit was every shuntomer teenage boy's dream come true. It felt like Starsky and Hutch and Miami Vice rolled into one. Did I mention you're driving a Porsche 911? The main innovation here with Chase HQ are the addition of 3 turbos and the sheer pace of the game, with a 2-part goal of hunting down, chasing the enemy and immobilizing them. The sheer presentation of the game sets it apart from all before, with Nancy's voice wishing you had a real-life medical emergency. Her voiceovers are an absolute joy to listen to. Once again, Ocean Software did a fantastic conversion for the ZX Spectrum and the Amstrad CPC. For me personally, the Amstrad CPC pipped the other 8-bit conversions, but the ZX Spectrum version is absolutely unbelievable and needs to be played to be believed. I wish I could mention the Commodore 64 version in the same breath, but let's leave that for another day. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do me the honor of liking and subscribing. Don't forget to ring that bell to be notified of upcoming videos. I'd like to thank Mr. Do and Orion's Angels for the arcade bezels. And until next time, Classic Replay out.
Okay. You're under arrest on suspicion of selling drugs.